Okay, yeah.
Okay, let's do this.
All right. So just to introduce everybody, I was trying to have a nap, and then Junshin called to say that I'm not having a nap because he just saw my film, and
Yep.
so we're gonna have an impromptu two naked Asian review on my film, The Politician, The Demolition, and the Dump Truck.
Yeah.
And the
But
first thing,
I'm not naked because it's very cold in my room.
I'm naked, but I've got 2 layers of duvet on top.
That's very
But the first thing Jason said before the recording started was he said that the official review from Junshin is that my film is very sad. So yeah, I want to have a talk and have this live summary of my film that I hope more people will watch later. By the way, I told my parents, but this raining filter is driving me crazy. I think this is too wet. I want it to be squirty, but maybe that's too wet. I told my parents that oh shit, so many buttons. I told my parents that I finished the film, and I told them. And first, my mom was like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I've been working on this film for fucking 5 years, and and that I I just finished them, and can they watch it?" And she said, "Oh, the demolition, like they've already finished like tidying everything up, you know." And I thought like, okay, that's sweet. Like for her, it's like, oh, that stupid thing, like that demolition thing, but like I don't think she understands how deep I went into this one little this demolition, like for me it's like a demolition of like my whole psyche, like my whole history and life and everything. Fuck, you're just frozen. I thought you're just smiling so nicely. Let me in again. Oh, here we go. The whole time I've been talking to myself.
I don't know why, but I got kicked out a little earlier.
I was talking the whole time. It's fine. I hope it's still recorded. I was talking to myself and thinking, Junshin is such a good listener. He's just sitting there nicely.
Should I do that next time? Just smile and like
Just put a picture.
yeah. I heard what you were saying about your mother.
That sounds like a dirty joke.
Um so they're over it.
Um, I mean, yeah, like, we just had a normal call. Like, it wasn't like we're having a deep philosophical discussion. I just told them I made the film and they were curious to watch it. But I thought that I'm actually kind of nervous to share with them for complicated reasons. But I'm curious, how was it for you, the language and the text from the film?
Um some stuff you talked about, like some vocabularies I didn't know the words simply. There were some big words, but so the things again, I said to you earlier, like when you talked about consumerism and how, and also what is it? You talked about tourism, uh, commodification of life, right? Everything turns into products which end up being garbage, basically. And then so I there was that storyline that I could follow until the end. Yeah. And then so the ending felt powerful and it was very, very sad.
Did
But
you cry? Did
huh?
you
I,
cry? Word?
I don't cry. I don't cry.
This is
But it made me think about my family. like
Huh.
like my grandma made me think about my grandma and how I didn't feel much when she passed away, although like losing her had always been my one of my biggest fears as a child, or like until it happened, you know, losing my grandma was one of my biggest fears. But when she died, I didn't feel much except for one moment. I felt this like huge tsunami of like sadness, and I felt like I could cry, but then I stopped myself, like, don't go there. And then I never felt anything ever since. But it kind of triggered something.
You know, that's interesting because now that you say it, I think about that um, because the grandma that lives in that house that was this demolished,
Mm,
half demolished, um, it's very much tied, connected to my grandma.
yeah.
And you know, this there's a classic psychoanalytic idea that with displacement, that like there's an example that a man, his wife dies, and
Mm,
he doesn't cry, he doesn't feel anything, and then he gets a pet, no, gets a dog or something, and then years later when the dog dies, suddenly he has a mental breakdown about it.
mm,
And for me, like, I also wonder about that, like when my grandmother died, I don't think I really processed either much as well, but it's not just grandma for me as well, like there's even so much about Taiwan, about life. And now that you've seen it, I want to also just add something, and maybe you picked it up. But that's also something that I hope that the film, even if you don't understand it, like I, I'm glad that you felt something that, and the meaning can come after or doesn't have to. But so for me, like that house, I had this dream when I was a kid, and I was trying to explain that dream because, like in the dream, my family were fighting, and there was the police, and the police came into the car and got this gun, but the police was very nice looking and smiling, you know,
mm.
light. But he took the gun from the back of our car and went back into the fight with the family. And I was thinking this thing about like who is the police, you know, like this idea, like is the police force, or like are we subjugated, are we, you know, are the police here to control us, or do we control the police? And for me that expands to the larger question of being Taiwanese in the 20th century. So the beach, I don't know if you can notice, but the people on the beach that I filmed, mostly they're from China.
Mm.
And so in
Oh,
Taiwan,
wait,
you didn't you don't notice it?
how,
Like,
how did you notice it?
I mean, there are the ones before where it's another beach where it's not as touristy, but that place is more Taiwanese people.
Mm,
But
mm, mm,
the really beautiful sunny, I really love these scenes with like women wearing red. That they're really Chinese, communist,
mm,
and I guess I can tell because well, I guess for Taiwanese, it's very clear. Like Taiwanese is more, you know, colonized, well, not colonized, it's more part of the imperialism, you know, of
mm,
modernity. And so the Chinese, they come, and now at that period, like there was a lot of Chinese tourists, and now we're more open, you know, but
mm.
very complicated, this Taiwan China relation. And, and
Yeah.
I think, and people generally want to collapse the meaning of Taiwan China. Oh, you know, do you support, do you not support? And in fact, this politician, he's classically right wing, he's part of the Nationalist Party. But the Nationalist Party are much more wanting to join China these days.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
So that's why in the end I added in the credits. I don't know if, like, you know, he was arrested in his house. Like they came in, like raided his house in the middle of the night, arrested him because they said that he's in suspicion of colliding with the Chinese Communist Party, because the nationalists, they want one China.
They do.
Yeah, they want one China because they believe that they're,
Taiwanese nationalists, right?
yeah.
Okay, yeah. One
They,
China, but with them as the authority, right?
I, I mean, that's the fantasy, that's the dream.
Right.
But obviously, people have to be realistic a bit. Like in today, it is not like 80 years ago or something like.
Yeah.
But that's the heritage. But like I think now they're much more wanting to, I mean, some of it's complicated. There's corruption, there's power, there's a lot of issues, and so when I see this guy, I don't
Mm.
know enough about the politics, very specific politics, but for me, he has the kind of embodiment of like also like Trump or like this kind of, he's a man. He's this like, I'm gonna get things done, and we're gonna make things great again. This kind of attitude.
Mm.
And what I thought was so interesting was also like how the whole time he didn't really have any policies other than like he's young and it's time for me to come do this. Like, but why? Like, why should you be the you vote for? But just because you're talking and you're there, but he's very good. I mean, he's a politician, but he just had to go and see everybody and repeat. And the people told me, they said they were very frank and open with me, maybe because I don't know, being educated or whatever. And they said, look, it's very simple. And it reminded me of the Zionists. Like, it's just we just have to brainwash. They even use that term. We
Mm.
have to brainwash. We just have to repeat. And they didn't have any qualms about it, and they were very nice to me and welcomed me to film. They wanted the footages for Facebook, but I just never gave it to them because I wasn't there to make random propaganda.
Yeah.
But I still,
Right.
it was interesting to look at it.
Mm.
But yeah, and then the other thing I want to add is that this idea of the littoral zone is it's a technical term, but like, well, not tech, it's in geography, the part of the beach. So there's the land and the
Mm.
ocean, but the beach is
Mm.
understood as the littoral zone, and the
Mm.
littoral, like depending on the wave, it come up and come down.
Mm. Mm.
What happens is when you have, let's say, from psychoanalysis, that the ocean can be a symbol of the unconscious, and things can be washed up, and then you can walk on the beach and look and pick up, like maybe there can be some trash, but the signs have been worn off, so they are just symptoms. When you think about dreams, or when symptoms of behavior, whatever, you can't see like exactly what it used to be. You just have the leftover, and you have to wait
Mm.
the waves go down, then you can walk
Mm.
and you can pick up these little trash.
Mm.
The idea of the trash for me was like I was really obsessed with for the last 5. um it started even when I was driving in New York and just stuck behind a rubbish truck.
Mm.
I was just watching this and I thinking like, oh my god, I don't want to look at rubbish. I don't want to look at unacceptable things.
Mm. 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 Mm.
So there's more and more things that's unacceptable.
Mm. I like the garbage part.
Yeah, like and I mean, I before even the demolition, I wanted to already go look at the rubbish truck because there's this music that I made with some friends that we're no longer friends anymore. But is the sound of the rubbish truck in Japan? Do you have sound of the rubbish truck? They have a music,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's like some Western song, and then it's in this funny, which I think it's really funny because in the West they don't do that.
They don't?
No, no.
I don't.
But we have to bring the trash to the truck,
Right.
which is interesting too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You have to throw it in yourself.
Yeah.
Mm. We saw that.
So yeah, that's a bit from my side.
Mm. Yeah, the garbage being crashed was kind of relatable, which is funny.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, the film felt very personal. It felt like, you know, like it felt like reading a journal, you
Mm,
know,
mm,
your journal. But Yeah, the first half it was hard for me to connect. Or there were bits and pieces where I could relate more, or just easy to process what's being said. And there were parts where I wasn't sure like what was being told. Um, part of it I wonder is because you mention yourself as he, right? Like I kind of wanted you to just say I.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
I I played with that back and forth. I had different versions.
oh yeah.
I mean, in general, the whole experience was so exhausting and tiring.
Yeah.
Everything, and then part of me thinks like, am I just deliberately making it hard for myself? Why don't I just do the easy way?
Yeah.
Just get it done. And then I thought, like, I realized that there were so many different kinds of restrictions or blockages that I have, defense mechanisms
Mm-hmm.
for me to speak and write about. To be honest,
Yeah,
to be truthful, is very.
sure. For
And then I thought, like, so then the next part was that I had some, have this like artificial woman, like a robot voice. And initially I just had this, and I wanted to even have a white woman narrate the whole thing. Get
mhm.
Phoenix to do it, or just have like this robot voice. And
Yeah. The robot sounded like Phoenix. I wasn't sure. Is that Phoenix or is that a robot?
she also couldn't tell. She thought it was her, but she
Right.
surprised. But the voice, I wanted to, because, and this is a big reference to, I don't know if you ever saw Sans Soleil, this famous film. This
Mm.
was one of my big inspirations of my life, even.
Is
But
that a documentary?
huh?
Is that a documentary?
Yes, like this, it's a essay film
Uh,
it's a very famous film from Chris Marker,
all
Sans
right.
Soleil, without sunless. And
Okay.
that my opening for my film is a kind of commentary on that film, because it's a very similar words, but I
Mm.
flipped it. So
Mm.
for me, it's also for me to reconcile with that film, because that film is Chris Marker. He went on a trip, and he went to like Guinea. He went to different places, but a big amount of it was in going to Japan.
Mm.
So he had a lot of interesting footages of Japan, and then he put over the top of a voice of a woman that read their letters, correspondences.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the style that I emulated and used. So that's the tradition from that, like film essay.
I see.
But the of course, Chris Marker in Sans Soleil, one of the biggest criticism is the Orientalist aspect, which
Right.
is totally correct to accuse him of that.
Mm.
Uh, and but it doesn't stop me from enjoying it. I still enjoy it, but I think the
Mm.
criticism of Orientalizing the situation is completely valid. But for me,
Mm-hmm.
the question is, okay, I am Asian and grew up
Mm.
in the West, and if I have a Western framework and language and mindset, how do I how do I reach certain ideas or experience this exoticism of self, right?
Mm.
Like, and the function of Orientalism and exoticism, I still think it's still it's not it's I, I don't want to put the judgment value immediately, but this question of like to use an other to speak
Mm.
about something complicated, but
Mm.
you are not respecting the other. That it's just a signifier. So this
Mm.
function is still important, but how do I do it if, as a Western mind, but Asian also, I
Mm.
can't. I am locked out of
Mm.
this process, because the other, the Asians, they are not just the Oriental. They're my family,
Mm-hmm.
and so I wanted to look at this, play with this, and so going back to this voice of this woman, I want to do the same thing for me to hear someone talk about me from as a third person that actually I'm controlling.
Right.
To feel how it is to basically look at myself, and that's the big question that I gave from in the film is like, how do I look at myself looking at myself?
Yeah.
And for you as an actor, I guess when you are on screen and you go and look at yourself, okay, so there's that one part of the look, like you go and you look. In fact, when you went to Hong Kong and these homophobic teenagers that said horrible things, but in that instance you got in a way what you desire. And I'm not saying that the horror feeling, but the feeling to have the people express, it's not honestly, but they were expressing their prejudice or whatever negative thing, but you got to experience their expression and their look of you. And how, but there's something that I want to get at even on a more pure level of like looking at me looking at myself. And that was, I think, my challenge, and that I wanted to, and so I used this artificial intelligent voice to speak about myself, but actually I wrote what those things. It's not even Phoenix, it's no one else, it's me.
Yeah.
And then it started to do something to my head. And then at some point, I was really annoyed at this whole experience. And I said, you know what? Ridiculous. Use I sentences. I feel this. I want to say that. And then I recorded myself, and it was horrible, like so painful. Like, but then what did you say?
It was so painful for you.
Yes. And it was so
painful.
painful.
Did you show it to anybody?
Sorry?
Did you show that version to anybody?
No. Of course, that's the next question. But for me, the problem was it made me so painful that I couldn't continue to work.
Yeah.
To destroy everything. And you could say that I'm a coward. I need to just try to but for me, I was like, no, I need to continue to work. I need to cheat so that the thing can continue.
Yeah.
And then I to find somewhere in the middle. I started to, and then at some point I thought, why not have both? And you could say, okay, that's a lazy answer. You could have just done one, just redo it, and I couldn't be bothered. But I said, no, there's something that happens, and there's a kind of like schizophrenic process and experience in it where I'm like, oh, like it's fracturing, like at first I have these thoughts, and then into the woman's perspective, and there's little bits where they even repeat each other. They were the same words. And I'm curious for you, did you feel different when the woman was speaking versus when I'm speaking?
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I wanted to
feel. It did not feel redundant.
I need to connect the power. It didn't feel redundant.
Nope.
How did you feel like between the woman and between me?
A little confusing, I guess.
but like in terms of feeling, like how do you feel about this woman's voice and what she's saying?
Very cold and distant. Cold, distant, rational, super objective.
Which is interesting, no? Like, how do you feel when I'm speaking?
Also very cold, distant. So for me, it felt like triple objectivity, kind of like being objective about being objective. Which could be a cool thing, and I understand, like I think what you're doing is very courageous. Like I think I don't know if I could do the same thing, like to feel my family house being demolished and the story and expose the story around it, which is about exposing my own uncles, kind of being an asshole or failure or loser. And then there's the family conflict. It's hard to talk about. So I think if I were in the same situation, I would maybe write a script about it and then change the names and faces. That's what I do, right? I turn it into fiction. I change the settings and everything. But you as a filmmaker decided to film the process, and you decided to fly there to spend the last time where the house still exists, and you filmed it, and you decided to make a documentary about it. I think that's a cool thing too. Like if I were a filmmaker, I would probably have done the same thing. Um, and I understand completely when you say in order for you to, because it was so painful, like you needed you needed to distance your, like make extra effort to distance yourself to keep working because the pain was probably too fresh and raw for you to bear, right? So I get that too. So you I think you did what you needed to do to finish the project. You did exactly what you needed to do to finish the film. Um, but I think you I I think you can, maybe you need time, but maybe you need to distance yourself even more so that you can think about a way to invite the audience more as a story that has an important theme that is universal.
Yeah, I'm getting into fiction right now. After all this, I feel like I need to do this. Then now I'm ready to do fiction
Yeah. No,
because
but
yeah.
this too, though, I think you could, I don't know, like personally, I think you should change the he to I, and I feel like you could show maybe a little more of how you feel about the situations in your readings when you're ready. Like I think at this moment probably too painful.
I think I think there's a part of me that understands that and sees the benefits in so many ways, but also I want to keep it that way. Like even if I feel like I've emotionally matured a bit more and understand all of that, there's part of me that to show myself like that's what I've been doing and that's like what I want, like and to kind of like it's not so much a celebration but just a memory, like it's to not pretend that I don't want to do that and that was
Okay.
but I definitely feel like I'm I'm glad to have I want to have done things and now I can do the next thing,
Yeah, yeah.
but I don't want
I
to write
that
history.
I respect that, and I'm coming from a place. I'm basically giving you notes from my own selfish place, right? And I think I am the worst person when it comes to like seeing story told in from an objective perspective, because I'm an actor, and maybe even before that there's something about me who's very curious about like, so about how do you really feel about this, like
Huh.
I think that's partially why I'm such a bad reader. Like reading stories don't interest me, and when somebody's telling stories I'm way more interested, because I'm more of the story. I'm more interested in how that person is telling the story.
Hey, but recently um I've been trying to spend more time reading novels.
Mm. I hate reading novels.
You hate reading novels?
Can't stand it. You know that.
I
The
somehow do, but
I,
I'm still shocked for you to say it.
the only thing I can read is articles, like news articles I can read,
What about
textbooks, scripts I can read. Because scripts are just dialogues, so it's close to listening to dialogues.
yeah.
But when I read scripts, I skip all the
Yeah.
what,
But did you how far? Be honest. How much of my book did you read? Because that's kind of a big script
which one? The sadness.
of sport, of pleasure.
Oh, I read my part,
Only. But
my part, and I read maybe parts of other parts.
but that's kind of a script. But what I want to talk to you about though
Mm.
was um between, and maybe you don't have enough exposure to these two, but the comparison between Murakami and Ishiguro.
I cannot read either of them.
You cannot, or you won't,
I
or you have not.
read books. I cannot read books, and I know why. I respond to the physical reality, not the story told by letters. Like that's my conclusion of why, even though I wish to so much, I cannot read because I respond to the paper instead of the letters.
I see. I see. Um, no, the reason I bring
I'm
that up.
a physical guy, actually. Like I'm very wordy and like but still I'm very. I think I respond to the physicality of things than the meaning of it. Or
The reason I bring that up is because I prefer one over the other immensely, and
mm,
and but I was kind of curious because am I even pronouncing their name correct? Ishiguro. Um, he grew up. He was born in Japan and grew up in Britain.
oh,
And so in some ways we are we have more similarities, me and him, than me and Murakami,
right.
because Murakami is, well, he's
Yeah.
Japanese. He has US some parents, but mostly Japan.
Yeah.
He's Japanese.
Hmm.
And so I how like Ishiguro, in a way, he's very English. I mean, he's Japanese too, but he's very English at the same time. And one of in some ways, both of them,
Mm,
the way they talk about feelings is
mm,
also quite subtle.
mm,
The characters and their feelings is quite like reserved, or
mm,
you would look at it repressed.
mm,
Uh, but yeah, like this question of feeling, and for me, acting, and maybe
mm,
that's the part maybe I'm interested in your point of view and your opinions a lot, because for me, acting has traditionally for me to be something so strange, and so it's not like, I of course I watch films, but I watch it for different reasons to you, and I think that's also why, like, in general, we have very different film experiences. Like whatever I've seen, you haven't seen a lot of times, and the other way around. Like,
yeah.
even though we both watch quite a lot, but it's
Yeah.
like, why did you not watch this one, and so forth. But the question of cinema, and of feelings, of stories, um, how can that be? How can those things be reconciled and shared? And this question of universality, you know,
Yeah.
very dubious about that.
Yeah. These days, I struggle like trusting that people are gonna get into any stories I write about. Like I write a dialogue, right? And I have in the past I have many times experienced uh good scenes, like actors are doing scenes and it drags me into it, So I have experienced to I have witnessed the power of drama and theater and acting and stories. But when I write and I read my own dialogues on paper, I just cannot believe that anybody is going to get into the story.
So, hey, this is really interesting, but I have to pee. Is this kind
Okay,
of
go.
like in public? Who cares? You call me at an awkward time, but the conversation is important. You
Mm.
said, with regards to, you've said this before, and there was even a moment where you felt really, I'm inserting a word that you were alienated or
Okay.
disconnected from, let's say, our generation, our peers, that people might not really understand or care or have this, like, the amount of investment and craft that you have put into understanding, in terms of acting, in terms of philosophy, is somehow feels pointless because people don't care about those things.
It's my biggest fear.
Right. Right. And you know, you said another thing. I'm just weaving a few things together. So if you can stick with me with my schizophrenic discussion, that you said this funny thing that, oh, you feel that until a person has read Dostoevsky and Tolstoy, whatever, then you cannot really start to write, or And
I
I've been thinking about the same thing, and I was irritated because then I thought, like, whatever, it's a statement from Junshin, and it can be true, it cannot be true, whatever. But every time I'm reading something, I'm like, why don't you just start? And I'm thinking, and the next thought is, it's too long. I don't have this kind of focus. Fuck. And then I thought, and I go, okay, next book, next book. And then I find myself reading so much. I'm reading all of these other books. I'm even reading all the small books of Dostoevsky. And I thought, I could have been done by now.
right.
I could have fucking be done with all of the stuff if I just fucking start. So I started. Right now I'm doing notes from the underground.
Cool.
And I thought, and I found this really good version where they have someone explaining, every after every chapter, every, like, big things, that, like, a lot of good footnotes,
Yeah.
and YouTube, and they explain me, like, what is this about? Why is he complaining about this? Who is he complaining to or about indirectly?
Mm.
And all the politics and all the gossip. And I thought, like, oh, like, I still don't completely get it, but I have a better access. And I wonder, when you say, and I wonder, maybe this is the generation issue, this idea of, like, to try to reach a universality. But I think today, this is what we wanted. We wanted to decentralize universality. We wanted to have a polyvalent world where, like, right now, you and I, we are the center of this conversation. Nobody has to watch this. It doesn't matter. But for us, we are the center, and we are happy.
Mm.
And we don't have to go into this way that we all have to watch the moon landing. We all have to do this one thing. Like, we all have to bow down to the philosophy that was happening in Paris. No, we can all be centers. And the pain of this is that, well, who cares uh, about all those things? But nobody else will care about yours either. And this idea of universality is, I think, really, we got what we wanted. Like, it's breaking, but are we ready to handle the cost or the impossibility to create a group? And I'll just add one last thing, is that when you bring up this thing about when, because I said, oh, this film, it took me 5 years to edit, and you said that's nothing, and you talk about when you were in New York and you organized your show, and you put, like, so much of your life into it, so much effort, and then everybody just disrespected you, and it's like, what the fuck did I do that for? And I wonder if, this pain, and still we have some weird reason to do whatever we have to do. uh
Yeah.
this is really scary,
It,
but
it is.
yeah.
I think I don't know why. Like when I was younger, I just believed in the magic because I didn't know about film and I didn't know about theater. I just thought there's this thing that has magic. So if you do it automatically, the magic's gonna happen, right? But now I know more about film and I know more about theater. I know a lot about theater, and it's like I saw inside and I'm like, there's no fucking magic. No, no way this thing is gonna work.
Mm.
It's an empty box. Is how I feel now, because I think I lost faith in. Uh, and of course, I haven't completely lost faith. Part of me is very, very passionate, but I think I'm at a place where I have to act as though I lost faith in theater, because I think there's something I need to investigate about this thing.
This is where I feel very Christian. This the notion of like like this whole thing with Jesus being tested his faith.
Mm.
That and of course you can replace God, and this might be somehow very like blasphemous, but this you how much do you really care and love something, and you really test it, and you really go to the end,
Mm.
not superficially just be like, oh yeah, I'm an actor, or I'm an artist, yeah, whatever, it's what else you're gonna do. No, it's like you take it to the fucking end. And there's this famous line from Jesus, as if it's just a play, but like when he said, God, why have you forsaken me? And he screams this in the desert, and there's no answer. Even for Jesus there's no answer. And this thing but somehow it's in that moment that you are most believing. And maybe this is like the Sisyphus kind of thing, like one must imagine Sisyphus happy, that actually it's precisely that you are failing, that you are doing that, that that's the kind of freedom in itself. But I thought of these days, I thought of this other issue, and this is a bit more personal, I don't want to say too much about the relationship, but even with Yasin, like there was these moments when I was explaining him something, and one time he said, hey, this time when you explained it, it was really nice because you were so calm.
He
Right?
said that.
He said that because sometimes I'm not calm
Mm.
when he says or do something really stupid and really violent and disrespectful, and it really upsets me. And I still think about this, and I told you about this before, but I will just say it just to make it clear, that I said to him, and I said even more calmly, and I thought, like, you should be really worried when I explain something very calm to you, because I don't care about you. You are
Mm.
this, and also and I hopefully I want to remove just even the sadism of our relationship, but I feel like in general with a subject, like somebody that can calmly explain to you what acting is.
Mm-hmm.
I want they are they then not possessed by the passion of the act itself? Like, let's say a critic. A critic is not uh, uh, someone who is in love with the thing itself. Like someone who can theorize on love is not the one passionately in love necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
No, I mean,
And so back to I just thought about my film, where on the one hand I want to have the ability to speak calmly about what happened. On the other hand, I want to be taken by the passion and the madness of it.
yeah.
But then that can't do the work. And so back to acting, this is the question, right? Back to acting, and we talk about this, and you're asking that about the truth of acting. Like, are you speaking the truth? And it's not the question, like, what is truth? And what is truth in acting and in fiction? Like, are you being honest? And and you can tell somehow about that. And that's where theaters is very interesting, where and professionally when people do it over and over again, and even matinee sessions, and but how do you commit yourself to that level of passion and truth, yet have the distance of professionality? And I think, of course, I don't think the affect, the emotion is nothing to do with it even, but it yeah, I mean, this is really complex in terms of like how do we behave in society, which is not the same as acting. But I think there is a problem, I think, with especially Western society, but this idea of like people should be calm and have a kind of that's I think that's even the religion that in my film I'm subscribed to, like objective, no, calm, to
Yeah.
be to have that distance and speak with it calmly and therefore then they have authority.
Mm.
Then that voice, that detached third person voice, has the authority over the narrative. But is that really true? And it's interesting for me to hear your response, and for you to watch my
Mm.
film. Uh,
Mm.
you know, like because you also say that, hey, like there's a kind of objectivity, there's a detachedness, coldness, but at the end you felt sadness.
Mm. I did.
Yeah.
No, I think the reason I was able to feel sad was simply because I don't I don't need to be told how you felt when I see a house being torn down. Just and I was given the information, the significance of the house, right? With the courtyard to dry the crops, and like when you say those things, I can immediately relate, and I'm like brought back to my own village, my own family, my own house, right? Because I know I had a place like that. I have seen places like that, and just 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 knowing that that house is being torn down, like you, that's easy to relate. Um, and again, like with the garbage scene, well, garbage being crashed, you know, like I really like felt the pain of like living in this society. I don't know if this is the only version of society in which people feel this way. Maybe people had always felt this way in all the other versions of society in the past. I don't know, but just feeling insignificant and disposable, replaceable. Nobody cares about you, and you know, you disappear and nobody remembers you. That's very fearful. Um, yeah. So the last 10 minutes were very easy to relate to.
What was the last 10 minutes? Is the trash and the
Yeah, the trash in the
yeah.
house, and also your mother nonchalantly saying, "Oh, it's been demolished already." You know, like she didn't.
She can be so cruel, you know. She I told her, I was like, Mom, you have one job. Like, tell me when they're going to take down the house. And she doesn't do it, you know. She doesn't.
I mean, it wasn't accidental that she didn't do it. You know, she didn't just forget it. She didn't want to tell you.
Yeah, she doesn't want to think about it.
She doesn't want to think about it. Maybe she didn't want you to come back and film it. She didn't want you to say difficult things or ask difficult questions.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's not accidental.
Um,
You don't, you know.
but yeah, I mean the family, the family is a complex place. But for me, I wanted to start. You know, oh, so what did this person write? It's in Japanese. Can you read it?
Yeah, yeah. Masaki.
What did he
He
say?
said. He says, "Bozu, this head suits me." Let me respond. I can just speak to him. Arigato.
Oh, but
Masaki. Hmm?
the other thing I wanted to talk about
Mm,
was also this you know, this house, it's the through the inheritance, it's divided into the two brothers.
mm,
And the you know, Westerners, they like to talk about I've been learning this word today. Despotism, a
Okay.
despot. You know,
No.
despotism. It
No.
means from back in the days. I forget the origin. Maybe Latin, doesn't matter. The original meaning is like that. It's a single ruler, like
Okay.
king, and I own and control my subjects. I'm a despot. But over time, it has become a negative connotation. Like, so they refer usually to, like in Asia, like, oh, the despotism. China got delve into despotism with Mao Zedong, right? This idea of like a tyrannical, centralized, patriarchal system or whatever. But a lot of but I felt like, oh, that's really interesting. Like, why is Asians and why the Chinese are despots
Mm.
when the West also is a kind of despot? Like, they also have monarchy, they also have centralized control, and you can
But
see.
how is that similar to dictatorship?
Yeah, it will be interesting. I don't have the internet with to look, but it's similar, but there's a very
Right.
specific difference. But it's,
Mm.
I guess, dictator, because because Mao Zedong is not really a dictator, or even now China, like, because there's a complex structure. But despotism, I guess, is more of a generic description. Anyway, what I wanted to say was, Asians, like, especially living in Germany, people will say, "Oh, patriarchy in Asia and whatever," and I'm not disagreeing, but a lot of times they don't understand what it actually is going on, even to the family level, individual level. So I just want to say, for my family, even though that side of the family, they left the house to two of the brothers. There are women in the house, but they gave to the oldest brother and the youngest brother. But it's not so simple, because the oldest son, the oldest child of the family, received the name of the mother,
Mm.
and the uh, the youngest daughter, which is my mother,
Mm.
received also the name of the mother.
Okay. The last name.
Yeah, yeah. So the two brothers that received the house have two different names.
Mm.
One is from the father and one's from the mother.
So, okay, I didn't know. Is that a thing? Like siblings not sharing the same last name?
It's not on my father's side. I have to ask them more, but it was something that, it was on my mother's side, that is different to my father's side. But they're from an older generation. Like, they also had Japanese influence. It's it's an older family,
Mm.
and so they had these peculiar things that was not so simple. Like, oh, they all did this one thing. Uh, I The reason I bring this up is just to say that it's very complex there, uh, and then also in this family, they divided into two halves, and
Mm.
the younger brother, he should be quite a good position, but he was like the black sheep of the family. Like, the whole life they gave him problems, and he gave people problems. So I don't know. Like, he's my uncle, so I don't know enough.
And he's the one who lost gambling and sold the house, right?
Yes, he sold the house without telling anybody, and
Half of
sold he sold half. He
and
sold, and
they can just claim the entire house,
he,
or they just
he
tear
sold,
down.
and they said, the developer said, they're going to cut exactly half,
Fuck.
which is ridiculous. It's kind of like two-state solution. Like, oh yeah, two-state solution, easy. Let's just share two-state solution. But it's ridiculous, because this house is really, really old, and the half of the temple, they want to cut exactly half the temple. But in the movie, you can see the demolition. The temple is completely destroyed. Like,
How is that even allowed, like legally?
and so everybody was so upset. And the older brother, he is even an engineer. He's a very famous engineer doing very important things in Paris and Shanghai. Like, and he was like, "What the fuck are you talking? Like, the structure cannot handle this." Like, and there's like, "Oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine." And yeah,
Mm.
and then in the end, like, they just had to accept it somehow. And in the place, they still, so basically only a third of the house is left. And the other side, the other side, my whole life, I think I've been inside the other side only once, maybe twice in my life. It was always a bit like strange. And, from here, if you were to develop a story, I would give the detail is that it's easy to hate the younger uncle who had the money like problem. But the thing is, like, I never understood why he's like that. Why did they, everybody, my whole life, and even the uncle, he tells me, don't be like me. I'm so terrible, blah, blah. And he says it almost happy.
Yeah.
Like he's taking the burden of, like, everybody else in the family is so perfect. And he's the one asshole. But I never really understood why. And of course, in this case, no, like, it's very upsetting that he sell the house to have it demolished, to make a condo, to pay for gambling. This is terrible. He didn't tell her. This is terrible. Of course it's terrible. But nobody was interested to have a discussion about why. There's no ability to talk at all. And this is a very, very dramatic scene that I heard from my mother, and I thought this would be a crazy, almost too much of a dramatic scene. Apparently, he took the money that he got for what he sold, all cash. It's a lot of money in cash, and he took it and he threw it at the older brother in front of the temple.
You say it in your film.
I wrote it. Yeah, I said it. Yeah. But for me, it's like, I think the reason I repeat it and I'm still in shock because I feel like no matter how I say it, I cannot imagine, like, it's so ridiculous. It's
Fucking
so
crazy.
over the top. It's so, like, when you say, like, I don't want to tell you to be upset, and sometimes this is like, but it's so dramatic. Like, it's almost like surreal and embarrassing. Like, it may be the Asian part that doesn't want to, wants to be like hidden. But
No, I mean, talking about your family is a lot. Like, I would be so scared to talk about my own family. But
I,
my selfish part wants you to share all of that in the film.
what?
No, what you're telling me, all of that, I feel like everything should be told in the film.
Right. Maybe you can
I,
help do it. We could
I,
write a script
it's,
about it.
it's so, oh, I'm able to say this because I'm totally objective towards the story, right? It's not for me. That's why I can say it's very rich. It has a lot. I think the movie can be developed more by adding more details and being more specific with what you're trying to tell. But I expect that because it's very, very personal to you, it's like your own journal. So when you wanna show it partially, but you don't wanna expose the whole thing because it's your journal. It's so.
But the other thing is that in some ways, like, when you speak about, like, to try to, I guess, like, simple ways to like, say, to reach a broader audience looking for universality and so forth. There's the question of the the gaze, right? The looking of this situation, and it's actually, like, you could say, like, okay, money problems, debt, family fight. Okay, that's very common. But there's another part of, like, talking about, I think what I want to reach and express is the invisible universality, the quietness of what is happening, which is that we're selling land, we're selling what we own to. It doesn't have to be gambling. It's just life, right? Like the reason that I'm also able to live was because I have received some of the land, but I cannot live in Taiwan because we immigrated for many other reasons. But this notion that people are giving parts of themselves to very few people in the world, and it's not one single thing. It's a very mass problem, but a lot of times it's not very sensational. It's very boring. You can see it in the probably accounting of people's lives. Very subtle things all the time. And I wonder even in Japan, no, like there's a lot of houses that's going up for free or very little, and people come in and take it and buy it up for nothing, and fine. But the, on the other hand, this is something that is so yeah, like I don't know. Maybe we're too much. I'm still too much in the middle of this crisis to really know how to talk about it.
Yeah. I want to say a few things. Like, first thing is that what interests me the most about what you're telling me right now is the mystery, the story that's being withheld from you. Like, there's something that everybody in your older generation knows, and they're not willing to tell you that.
It's
Like,
true.
that's the most fascinating part. That's the part that I can relate to, actually, because there's something like that in my life too.
Right.
Something about my grandma that I hear very far relatives. They say something funny about her. I'm like, what was that? You know? But I'm too scared to ask questions. And I can my mother or my mother's siblings about it. It's like I can tell it's a box that I cannot open. Right? I should
You have inherited this. Stop opening temple doors.
do not open. There, Japanese ancient tales has many of this. It's like, I'm going to work all night, but do not look at me when I'm working, or like, I'll give you this box, but don't ever open it. And then in these stories, the idiots always take a peek, and then they or open the box, and then there's a tragedy.
So in a way, I feel like, yeah, this film is me. I'm the idiot. The actor is me looking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, exactly. You're the annoying kid. You're like my brother, like, so I went through, our family went through a very difficult time, and I remember everything, right? Because I was old enough, but my brother doesn't remember anything. He grows up and he sensed that something weird is in the air. So he wants to ask everybody, hey, what's up? What's going on? Like, why don't you, or why am I not allowed to ask this question? Or why am I not allowed to talk about this question? And then my mom or we say, like, just don't ask that question, or just stop talking about it, or like, like, we don't want to talk. It drives my brother crazy. He's like, why can't I ask this question?
I'm like that. And now they call it autism or something.
But I think it's important that, like, I see, like, as annoying as he was, it takes like a few years, but I noticed, oh, maybe it was good that he asked those questions. There's something therapeutic.
Yeah.
Like, the questions raised because it's necessary. It's like, they truth always finds a way to reveal itself. So it's revealing in a way, through my brother sensing something. So when you are questioning, why did my uncle be like this, and there's nobody wants to, even act like they have some idea of why he became a fuck up, you are sensing that there is truth under the sand that needs to be exposed, right? And this is what's going to happen with Israel and Palestine, right? Because, I mean, I hope not, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to occupy Gaza and make a resort, right? And they're gonna call it like something like the peace town, or they're gonna have a very tacky but very literal like happy town or peace town. It's gonna be embarrassing, right? And then 4 years later, we are gonna see the young kids, everybody just having the blast at those resorts. Like, this is the most beautiful beach, blah blah blah, right? And then we're gonna be resentful. We're gonna be like, I will never go to Gaza, or like, I will never go to that resort. I hate that resort. And they will be like, why are you so bitter? Like, like, get over it. You're so what's worth being so negative? That the past is the past. Why don't you enjoy the present? Have the positive view on future, blah blah blah, right? That's how these sins get covered under the sand. But then it follows us around and trips us over, right? I feel like that's the wound people talk about, the forgotten trauma and the wounds. Like, that's like, we talk about the, I still think Japanese society is still under strong effect of World War II, right? It's these, we have all these, like, almost like, what is curses affecting us, but we have forgotten about the curses, so we don't know where to look, right? We just live with the effect of the curses. um so again, I think at one point somebody's gonna say, hey, like, everything is happy, it's a beautiful resort, but I'm sensing something really wrong about this place. So can we talk about lost memories? The ugly situation before this beautiful resort, the Disneyland, was built.
That's, I think maybe this is also the part where we need like ghost stories and fiction, um, because to say the thing directly, it's too intense, it's too much. People can't handle it. But I think my resentment, and I can see, like, sometimes, like, I I can relate to your brother. I can be that way, you know.
Yeah.
I
I
even I think I even make a whole career out of being that way. Like, that's my concept.
why can't I say this? Why can't I ask this question?
But I think that's also, um, this position becomes like the canary in the coal mine, where when a person, when this kind of position cannot make voice anymore,
Yeah.
that's a test that you cannot breathe, that you are in a fascist or a very oppressive system. And we are really there now. And what was really horrifying, and going back to Yasin in my book, that was something very horrifying. And over the last few years in my work, each
Yeah.
project has more and more censorship. And people want to say, oh my God, Orange Man Trump, so bad, so bad. Okay, I'm not disagreeing with that. But the problem is not, Trump does not come to my house every day and say, you cannot write this, you cannot do that. You know who
It's your
it's my friends. It's the closest, and this is the part where, that's what I mean when I say it's not that they should be afraid. I should be afraid when I am calm. When I say yes sir, I will not talk about that, or use please and thank yous. That in that moment we are not in a free situation. And what was so crazy about Yasin and some of the people in my book and also the film, that they got very, very aggressively upset, or passive aggressively, about what cannot be said. And I'm going to say this not to hurt him, but even just to reveal the ghost, because it was so I wonder if you can understand, because not because you can understand, I just mean, like, it's so crazy, the censorship. It was because the actual time when we got together and spoke, he told me a secret. And it's exactly what we're talking about in terms of secrets. That this woman he was dating, her friend saw her parents cheat on each other.
Mm.
Okay? And therefore, he wants to censor me to not talk about any of this. But you see how many levels of like protection of like we cannot talk about somebody saw something. Some, you know, like who? It's so,
Yeah, but secrets are secrets.
but the thing is, it's not written in the book.
Oh,
This,
okay.
this is like the Barbara Streisand effect.
Mm.
Barbara
I don't
Streisand
know.
effect. It's a famous thing now because a photographer had a photo of Barbara Streisand's beachfront and talked about the deterioration of earth, of water, like, you know, whatever, like horrible effects, and you know what, like just, you know, effects of like the water is taking the beach and whatever. But nobody cared. But Barbara Streisand got so upset and sued the photographer for putting this photo in public. And because of that, he put this photo publicly for everyone to see and told everybody that Barbara Streisand is suing him. But because she tried to censor him, now everybody knows about this fucking effect.
Right.
It's even named after Barbara Streisand, and she lost in court. But it starts with the censorship, and therefore it's the censorship which we want to see. And this censorship, the secret, like what is the secret? It's not about the object of the secret, it's about the secret, the desire to censor. And it's the question of who gets to censor and why. And not even who gets to censor, it's who gets to be told to shut up.
Yeah.
And this is for me the layer of oppression that I say to Yasin, you can fuck off, you white supremacist. It is not right. And that is the power that is pushed upon. And this is also the I would say some of the last remnants of white supremacy, where they really are holding on to last bits of, and this is what I'm talking on a meta level, that what is the narrative? Because it's not about the ingredients of the narrative, it is who gets to come up with a narrative. Right? And the white supremacists, and like they want to hold the ability to create, to change. And Japan does that, and Japan wanted to be a part of this game too, right? To become an imperialist, to have the right to create narrative.
Yeah.
And this question, I think, is the larger battle, you know, metaphysically, that is happening right now, already happening in terms of a World War III. And so this question of like who, for example, in my family, this uncle, in a way, I suspect that he is the one that is being given some kind of, and I'm speaking here without knowing, quote unquote, the truth, but it seems to me that he has been burdened by as a position to hold certain views of the family, the secrets of the family, the self-perception, the way that this family is perfect and he is the bad one. And this is for me a model of Palestine, of the world, of the way some people has to hold the burden. They have to take all of the pressure to not speak about certain things, to not reveal publicly the violence, while the rest of us can then go on enjoying a self-deception. And so for me, that's a big realization, and took me a whole film process to also think about this idea of trash. Who is handling the trash? And we look down on the people who handle the trash, but we are the one creating the trash.
So, but are you saying talk up uncle, are you saying knows more than everybody? Like everybody just shares him secrets and that he's burdened to talk about?
When I say secret here, I don't mean I don't know about a specific secret,
Yeah.
but I mean the secret that, um, okay, for example, let's say we are part of this Wang family. That's my mother's side's name, Wang. We're the Wang family. Then we see ourselves as one way, that we do not gamble.
Oh, yeah.
We do not deal with the mafia. We
Yeah.
pay our debts,
Mm.
right? The Wang family is like this,
Mm.
except this guy.
Mm.
And we say, yeah, but he's not really part of that.
Mm.
He's not really. And so in and the whole time they can point. Yeah, they always say, look at that guy, don't be that guy. And even the uncle comes and tells me, don't be like me, do not be like me, right?
Mm.
Be the good ones, have a family, do all the right thing. I am the not good one, you should not be like me. And to the point, finally, I think in the way that the film, in reality, the house is split in two. Well, this side is no more, is gone. And so now it's but I do wonder what happens to the family, to the Wang family, when he, if he actually doesn't exist even. Then how do we live with ourselves? It's no longer the same family as before, where you can say we are like this and he is bad. But now, if he doesn't even exist, how do you understand yourself
Right.
without this? And this is the question. This is the stupidity of the Nazis, but also of the Israelis, that you want to believe that we just need to get rid of this. And I think that's the magic of when you gave the example of, here's a box, Junshin, but do not look inside it. And I think the stupidity of your brother, I don't mean to be mean to him, I just mean the kind of like, and I stand by the stupidity, but there is the kind of stupidity that you think we need to open the box and find the secret, but like, no, we need to keep the box and not look at it. Not because we should hide it, but because it's important that, you don't want to neutralize it.
Yeah. You need the box right next to you so that nobody can open it.
Yeah. And there is a kind of like, that's the village idiot's position, no? That wants to open the thing and discuss it, but no, and I think this is more and more, we are in this world that we did not really understand the problem of what the Nazis arrived at philosophically. We didn't understand why they thought that way, and that is why I think today we are making still the same thought conclusion, but we have now put new terms, don't be anti-Semitic, but actually it's the same logic. The logic is that we cannot accept the unacceptable.
But Nazi became that way because they were treated so inferiority, right?
That's one way to look at it, and when definitely a big part. But I think philosophically, there's a there's a kind of absolutism that, like, that's the kind of easy victim story. But at some point, even with the power and everything, that it became this like obsession. No, we must finish it. We must get rid of it. We cannot have this other thing that we cannot accept. And I think in general, and that's the part where the question always backs to, how do we accept the unacceptable? And for me, this is in its purest essence of this film. Everything is unacceptable. Like, so when you tell me about universal ideas, or like, a drama, or like, that can be more accessible, like, I totally agree with you. And in a way, everything about this film is so unacceptable. it's so wrong. It's a huge perversion.
Yeah.
And when you told me that, oh, when you did your theater performance and how, nobody came and but there's part of me that feels like, yeah, why do we do what we do? Because I think about how, okay, yeah, and especially now at this age, I'm thinking like, oh my God, I should have been a doctor, a lawyer. I should have done something correct with my life. And then when I think about those things, like, what do those people do? Let's say you're a doctor. Somebody gets sick. You help them to not get sick. Okay, you're a lawyer. They have a legal problem. You help them. But after that, after everything, what the fuck do people do? If once we help everybody, what do you do? What is the point of life? Okay, have more kids. What does the kids do? And at some point, I feel like, yeah, we need people in society that is maybe like your brother, that is opening the box finally, and you do the thing you're not supposed to do, and that's that. And like, there needs to be, and I think this is also why a lot of films these days and a lot of mediums, they do not work. It's the same obscenity that they talked about. There's a French filmmaker, and I had the same logical desire. She makes movies with real sex, and also drama and script, right? And it doesn't work. Usually, there's a larger critique on this, but I'm starting to understand this, which is that you give. Okay, so you ask what people want, and you give them what they want. It's not enjoyable and satisfying at all. You're giving what they didn't know that they wanted, or they don't even want. And and this is the part where I think about Avgi Saketopoulou's work a lot, like about sadism, this dynamic, this experience, this sadomasochistic relationship, you know. And I wonder about what would happen with your development as an actor, and in terms of even in your writing, like to keep going with this this thing that people don't know that they want, to kind of develop this. And I feel like that is for me a big depression, where people are going, no, we want this, we want action, we want robots, we want blah, blah, blah. And it's like, there's nothing there. It's a dead fucking end. We need to have this these failures,
Yeah, I mean, the world of high fashion is all about making things people cannot have, right?
Yeah, that's the ultimate.
They double down on right now they're raising the prices with no reason, just so that it's not accessible.
Right. You need to have the non-accessible so that you can access just the one after underneath.
They get the price high, and they're like, people can't buy this, and then people start to sacrifice their daily life to buy it, and they go, oh shit, they're actually buying it, let's make it down. They rising the price so to maintain a place where it's not accessible. It's a very toxic industry.
But I think,
Frank.
but there's a problem here, that, see, the logical conclusion is to say, let's get rid of it, right? Let's only provide people what they can afford and need. Okay. But there's a problem here, which is that we're removing this understanding that we need this fantasy or this position, and it's terrible. And I didn't like to accept this idea, like, let's say monarchist, the idea to have a monarchy, right? And Japan, you still have the emperor, but it's a very different function. But it doesn't matter who sits there. It needs to just exist so that you can then go on with your life. And this sounds very horrible, because it's like, yeah, like, why? Like, what a fucking waste, and so forth. But I think on a metaphysical level, on a kind of like, I think we're having a psychic existential catastrophe. And now I'm kind of excited for it, but it's still catastrophic to remove, all of these concepts and positions. And now you should just take on the burden of existence, all on your shoulders. It's very tough. And
It's very cool.
It's very painful.
It's almost me knowing about theater. If I didn't know about theater, then there was this thing that contains magic that I could one day, that's gonna make a tremendous change in my life. But now I kind of like look inside of it. I'm like, oh, there isn't such any such, there isn't such thing.
And I wonder, this is maybe my fantasy desire for Yasin to actually watch this, but there's a part where I'm talking about as if like we're a movie, but he's upset that, as if like I'm upset at him for stealing my work, or that I'm upset with him or whatever. But I'm upset with him for different reasons. I don't think he really understands that. One part is that he thinks that I know what he wants and how to get it. And to some extent, I know about, like, the way that you say you understand theater, right? I know the fantasy he's looking for, and I've done it, and I know what he needs to do to get that thing.
Yeah.
But the problem is not that I'm withholding it from him.
Yeah.
The problem is that, or there's many problems. There's the societal problem. There's also the problem of himself, that I don't think he wants to. I'm not sure he's ready to do that. Because once he gets it, he will have to suffer just like you and me.
Yeah.
And I think people, this is usually, I think this is a big explanation actually of racism. Racism is just a very lower end of the symptomatic problem, that you can find someone to blame for your problems.
Yeah.
And the larger problem is much bigger, about yourself, about a large thing, and you're just finding a scapegoat. That's a lot of times where I'm really angry at him, because I'm having to be used to be that position. And this is what's interesting historically too, like when people have kings, that sometimes when they kill the monarch, they cut the head off and have a revolution, that also serves a function. It's the same with sacrificing a leader, to the act of it allows for people to put a lot of the frustration that has nothing to do with the leader. But if that's the question, like if you have a earthquake in Japan, is interesting about this. The earthquake in Japan, it's objective. What do you call it? They have a symbol. They have this fish, the catfish, right? And they can talk, and they can reify this concept of earthquake. You cannot complain about earthquakes when it's just vibrations of the fucking rocks, but you can discuss and negotiate with the catfish. You know?
Right.
But in society, how the fuck do you release your frustrations about macroeconomics? People don't have time to think about macroeconomics, but you can blame those people.
Like a real person.
Yeah.
Need a real person.
And we want to reify, we want to look at the cutting off. We need like a physical appearance. And I think this is the trappings of humanism, where we thought liberal democracy and humanism, okay, we are no longer barbaric. We no longer execute people. We do it secretly, electroshock. We do it like closed door. You don't see the guy executed. But then something happens in terms of the lingering frustration, right? I mean, this is maybe the Foucault kind of perspective. Like before, you cut the guy's head off, and you ever go, yeah. And in some societies, they even eat people. I read this really amazing thing about cannibalism, that there was these people that went. There's a researcher. He went and met these people who are cannibalists, and he talked to them. And one day, one of the elders died, and he discovers that they ate this woman. Okay. Then he went to talk to them, and he asked them, like, why? Like, he was so afraid, it's so horrific for us to imagine to eat people. And he asked them, why do you eat your own people that you love? And then the guy said to him, he says, listen, and he asked questions. He's like, is it because you believe in this? He says, no. Like, we told you that because you want to believe that. You want to believe we have this crazy ritual. That, you know why we eat them? It's because it's really good. It tastes better than anything you've ever had in your life. We just told you that we do all these things and it's magical because we know you like to hear that. But for us, secretly, we just do it because it tastes nice.
Yeah.
And I don't mean about that we should be cannibalists, but what's interesting is like I think there's so many things that we do. Like for example, when we eat meat and when you cook meat, when you process meat, no, there's this crazy violence that like when I'm cutting. Yesterday I made some pork, like 卤肉饭, this Taiwanese dish, and I got a big piece of pork belly, and I cut it myself, and
I love Gohan.
and it's so disturbing, this experience, to cut something that's like, oh my god, it could be my hand, like with the bones and everything. And but then at the same time, there's this thing of like, oh, how good it tastes after.
Yeah.
But I don't sit there thinking about the theory of meat eating. But at the same time, there are all of these I think that's also the part when, for me as an Asian, that a very white person thing. Like Buddhists can be vegans, but white people veganism is different to Asian Buddhist veganism thing. Like the material thing is maybe the same, but the reason to do that a lot of times I think is a very different reason. And I think that's the difference that you can observe, that when Buddhists, for example, I can eat meat in front of a monk. Okay? But I'm scared to eat meat in front of a vegan sometimes. They are very aggressive.
Yeah.
This is the reveal of this is the excess enjoyment. This is not about the meat. It's an ideological difference, and it's a class issue. And there's a violence that comes with that. So anyway, this is very long. We're getting further and further away from my...
whole another heated and deep talk about veganism and classism and
no, but I bring that up is
it's like there's this need to do. You need to do something people are not doing, so that you're free from the sin.
Yeah,
people contain.
It is more. It's
almost like a habit. You need to have to tell yourself you're special and you're not as bad as the rest of the
where it's very different between a Christian society. They're still Christian. There's a question of sin. Not a question of sin. There's karma, but it is not a question of sin.
Yeah.
So fundamentally, it's a very different structure, very different system. And so these were some of the things that came up for me in the film, where the politician, he goes to the temple, he goes to actually there's little things that I didn't manage to put in there. There's one little thing that I didn't have very clear footage and I didn't add in there. There's a moment when we're driving and they stopped. They had to do all this, and they were also kind of a little bit secretive about it. I don't mean like they were hiding it from me, but they had to get some things and some very specific things. I don't want to say flour, but something like that. And they arrived at an empty plot of land. Okay, stopped the car, and they went outside and they threw something in the land. It was something like a religious thing.
Okay.
And this is what's really fascinating, is that people talk about like logic or even like policies, or you should vote for me because blah, blah, blah. But behind all of this, there is the kind of when in the US they talk about like, oh, when they have secret parties, they pray the big owl and they all these rituals that is secretive. It's actually there more than we realize, and we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
So this guy, he did all these very interesting things, and there was this little scene that I put before the toilet paper stuff, that in the front they have all these plants, and there was even one plant that was broken. I don't know if you remember. There was one plant that it somehow fell over or something. It was like a bad omen. They had the 3 lucky plants, and one plant was fall over and was broken in the middle and it shattered. And I thought, oh my God, this is so awkward. So there's all these things that in society, I think that's what I want to show, is that on the one hand, I try to be objective with my camera, objective with my script, objective with my perspective. But the world is fucking weird. There are all these things that is happening that makes no real sense, and that I can, no matter how objective I can be about it and tell it, I can never really get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. You know, I really wanna hear you talk like that in a movie. The way you talk now. It's so nice.
More than the objective, boring kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say boring. It's just what's the word? It's like an unnecessary extra layered. It becomes. It's like
So,
becoming
why do that? Why do people do that? Why can't I just? But the thing, I think what is invisible is that when I'm working, you're not there, and I don't mean
Yeah.
you. I just mean like this, to be able to have this level of like.
Yeah, but so I guess, and this is a very important thing actually when you work on a monologue, right? When you don't have anybody you're talking to, but you have a long ass line like Hamlet, right? You need to have a specific person you're talking to. So, like, I don't know, like if you were to read all these texts that you write for this movie, like if there's one person you're telling this to, like who is that person?
So that's a much more complex problem, right? Like, so I'm into psychoanalysis, and I do psychoanalysis 3 times a week. In that experience, it's like I've had like 2+ years of this fucking monologue because the analyst doesn't really say anything.
Right.
She just helps a little bit when I really have not much, like nothing. She just tries to poke or try to get me going. And the question is, what?
What does she do? Ask you questions?
No.
How does it help you when you get stuck?
There's of course many techniques, but like generally the most of it is just like the classic one is just repeating what you said.
Okay, yeah.
But that's like entry level, very quick kind of thing. But the as over time you start to, you're trying to find always, like, let's say I tell you, oh my God, the story is about my uncle and like the blah 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 and blah, 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 and I get really excited, and then I sit somewhere in between, like something about, on the way there I got a coffee, or something even weirder, something more random, like, oh, I flew with Turkish Airlines, whatever. And then after I tell you all the story about the uncle and the money and everything, and then she'll just say, Turkish Airlines? It's like, what? That has nothing to do with anything. Are you not listening? And sometimes it's so jarring, but it keeps you talking. And so the question is, am I talking to her? I would argue I'm not talking to her. I'm talking to the unconscious. I'm talking to, and then what's going on is afterwards she might say something that is so weird, and so, but it's not something that it's about her, it's about me. She took the inspiration from me, but if it's good, that it catches me by surprise, and I'm like, I didn't say that. And that's the denial, right?
Yeah.
And I know that she's trained to not speak about her stuff, and so if she says something that I'm surprised, that means that's my defense mechanism. And so then what happens is, then of course I look into my dreams, I look into what happens in my daily life, and be like, okay, what else is happening? So the dialogue is no longer with me and you, or me with my mother, but rather with me and my unconscious, this other that we're speaking to.
Right.
How do you dialogue with that? And I suppose this sounds maybe like a cop out or an excuse or something, but when I'm writing and all these things, like, on a larger scale, like, I'm not even in a dialogue. Like, it's like I invite you to watch a dialogue that I'm having with my unconscious or with these larger questions, and those things don't care about your performance on certain levels.
Yeah.
And then this is the thing that, and this is something that's really interesting because, for example, you look in history of even art. Why are some paintings banned? They're not even using words. For example, the classic story is that when there was the Iraq War at the United Nations, they had to cover Picasso's Guernica. Nobody said anything, but the guilt, their guilty conscience of their own unconscious was uncomfortable with that painting, that they have to cover it. And so this is something that I think a lot of times the arts, and I think this is the trap when people get too logical about, and this is why I think like the people who give like writing seminars or something, you know, teaching you how to write hero's journey, like it's very reasonable, you know, like you can create this good classic formula, but that's why they call it formulaic. So the question is, who are we really talking to? And a lot of times we don't give credit to our unconscious, to you know, and before we could have like spirits, you know, you pray to your ancestors or whatever, you could put a manifestation on these things. But now you know, I think that's why the West requires psychoanalysis, because you cannot be that guy that believes in you know, monsters and shit, and the earthquake fish, catfish, you know.
This is interesting because when I wrote my own play, like One Fine Day, it was all it, not all about, but like a lot of that was about, the process was about me investigating how I think. You know, like, because I a lot, you know, when I also, especially when I'm alone, when I'm just sitting or walking, I'm constantly thinking. And but I couldn't figure out how I think, you know. But what I discovered from that investigation is totally opposite from what you just told me.
Good.
Because but I can only observe the part that I'm conscious of. I can be conscious of, right?
Yeah.
So when I'm really lost in my thought, I cannot investigate how I'm thinking. But when I catch myself thinking, I would try to you know, see what's going on. And every time I catch myself, I was talking to somebody, and I was in a situation at a I'm at whether a real time and place that I've been in the past, or a fictional place that I had never been in my life. So I'm fantasizing myself somewhere, talking to somebody I didn't, I think usually somebody I actually know, right? Or I'm in the past, some time of my life, um, saying things I wish I said. Or it was very, very specific and particular. Every time I caught myself thinking, it's whether trying to fix a conversation that I had in my past, or saying things I wanted to say, or in the past, or saying things I want to say in the future to somebody I want to say that to. Like there's always somebody, and the desire to have myself be heard and understood from that person.
So this is the part though, I wonder if you think also about the Buddhist notion, like who thinks the thinker, like who who is speaking through you, and this idea that the language is trying to speak through you. Would you say that you are thinking?
That's I don't know. I haven't investigated that, but I mean I've it's not like I've never thought about that. You know, I say it like letters from the universe. You know, it's like because when you're speaking, you're not really you don't know. It's like it's almost like you're listening to yourself. No, like it's not scripted. Sometimes you have practiced conversation, right? you rehearse it in your head, and then you actually say what you have rehearsed. Sometimes you talk like that, but like right now when I'm talking, it's like riding a wave or something. Like I don't know what I'm about to say. Like five seconds, they just like pour out of me, right? Um, it's very weird.
And this is the part where I'm noticing the police state that is internalizing people.
Mm.
So when you speak about this, and I feel like for artists, a lot of times we are trained to capture that, to celebrate, to create the right environment for that. Some people before might call it witchcraft, they might call it spiritualism or whatever. But today, I I see, like, and this is the psychologization of this thing, like, oh, intrusive thoughts. People call it intrusive thoughts. For me, I'm like, it's not intrusive. I feel other people intrusive for my thoughts. I need to think about it now, and you guys are intruding. It's not the thought that is intruding. And what is really interesting is, like, again, back to this question of secrets and holder of secrets, who are given responsibilities to hold secrets. I mean, that's a lot of times, some religious functions is they are given this function. No, they are the ones to know. I mean, that's what the priests used to do. They hold the community's secret. They carry it to their death. And they like there's less and less people. Someone, what do you guys prefer? Being 10 years too early or 2 minutes too late? I hate these kind of options, A or B.
What is it? There's a comment?
Yeah.
It's not showing here.
Oh, I'll read it to you. It says, Diego Diaz wrote, what do you guys prefer, being 10 years too early or 2 minutes too late? I have an answer, but do you have something to say?
10 minutes too early or
No,
2
10
minutes too
years.
late for what?
10 years too early or 2 minutes too late?
For what? Like doing things in a society?
As a concept, as a general question. I
10 years too early.
think in general, it's we only know that you have been 10 years too early, 2 minutes too late.
I can't think of a specific situation, but I know I tend to be 2 minutes too late. Like I hate to be the early one
I think that
when it
that's
comes
the only
to like
way.
meeting people, huh?
That's the only way you know that you have been 10 years too early, is 2 minutes too late.
10 years too early is 2 minutes. Is 2 minutes too late?
You understand. Look, even right now, you have not understood it, but in 2 minutes' time, you will understand it, but it's too late. And then when you realize it, you will also realize that you've been 10 years too early the whole time, but you have only understood this 2 minutes later.
I did not get it.
That's what I'm trying to say.
It's too complicated.
It's like, all the dead artists that after they're dead, they realize that it was the right.
Like being ahead of time.
Yeah, I agree with this new one that someone wrote. Being 10 years early is crazy making, uncomfortable, and isolating, right? Yeah, I think if you know that you are 10 years too early, society calls you a psycho.
Yeah.
They call you crazy. They
Right.
call you, they call you a witch. They call you, the village idiot, because you are not a part of the power structure of ideology, and you're upset. That's how you know you're.
It's not nice.
No, it's horrible.
Yeah,
And
it's not.
and then nobody likes that guy who's walking around and say, oh, I totally knew that you were supposed to buy Bitcoin in the 90s before the guy was even invented. Of course, you were supposed to buy a house in the 80s before you were born. Like, that guy
Yeah.
is also fucking, that guy is annoying. So I think we should have more patience and pay respect to the village idiots and the crazy people that are saying crazy things. We need to bring back
But
the homeless guy but that's like Buddhism, you know, like the
but
Buddhism.
but we always have 100 people saying crazy things in 100 ways, and only one person is right. So how do you know? How do you differentiate that one person who's right from the 99 people who are saying the wrong things
You
at the wrong time, never ahead of time?
it's called having a diversified portfolio. You give each one of them
Yeah. I would be happy to be the guy who's 10 years early if I knew I was right. But the thing is, there are millions of people that could be 10 years early, and most of them are not 10 years early. They're just crazy.
yeah, just regular stupid, but you know,
They're
a
regular
bro
stupid. Yeah.
there's the classic saying that a broken clock is correct twice a day.
Yeah. Yeah. that yeah, that too.
But anyway, so good. I'm glad that we recorded this, and it's a good way to introduce my film that I hope people come to watch: The Politician, The Demolition, and the Dump Truck.
Yeah.
How would you rate it out of 10? Stupid questions.
6.5.
That's good. That's acceptable. You know, that's a good
Yeah.
critical review from Junshin. 6.5 out of 10.
It was really difficult to give that because I think it needs to be seen in a theater too.
Yeah, I mean, we all
Like
need to be
like
put it
like
straight.
movies like this should be seen in a theater. Like because I was watching and I was thinking, this was gonna feel so different in the theater.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because in the house, we going to the cinema is like going to a mini dominatrix, like going to a temple.
Yeah,
You
you get tied up.
you get tied
You
up. You have to be full.
you lose control, you lose power, you're not allowed to speak.
You're not allowed to have an identity. It's dark. No one cares about you.
Yeah. And then you see things you wouldn't see otherwise, right?
Yeah, but yeah, the tricky thing. I wonder if I can be able to get this in a cinema. But yeah, how do you feel that how does it compare to my first film?
Your first film, I have very, very little memories now.
Oh no.
Like, like I remember, and I don't even remember who's who, but I remember the couple speaking by the van,
They're so memorable for people.
talking about, they're talking about marriage, right? Were they talking about marriage?
Not really, I guess.
What
About
what were they talking about? Like
about
relationship?
no, about flogging, about life, about desire. Shit, I lost you.
Fake horse naked?
Are you still there?
Yeah, yeah, I'm here.
Bad. You were saying?
I was saying the other thing I remember is like a guy was riding a horse or something, like a fake
Yeah,
horse or
yeah,
something, naked, right?
yeah. No, he was wearing Phoenix's bondage gear, leather gear.
Mm. But he was riding something, no?
He was riding a little toy pony thing,
Right, yeah.
which because of this I started to make this film,
Yeah.
but later he was so excited about, but he then later got so ashamed of it, and he threatened me to to cancel the whole thing, you know?
Yeah. And that's the part I remember.
Yeah. I guess in a way I was a little bit concerned what would the politicians say about my film, you know, because I didn't really have more contact with these people.
Mm.
Uh, but at the same time, since he's under the lawsuit, and I don't think he actually gives a shit. He's got bigger problems to deal with in my art film. But
Yeah,
and also I didn't put him in a bad light or anything.
not at all.
If anything, I feel
He,
stressed that
he was shown as a good guy until you write he was like arrested or sued and then for being tied to CCP or something.
so you know a big part of the film I was worried that people would have no like interest just to watch these things that I felt. I think there's a bit of my resentment, which is that I had to stand there and just look at these crazy. I wanted to look at reality, and it's
Mm,
fucking boring. There's no
mm,
narrative. No, I'm just there, and
mm.
I want to share this experience.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
in reality, it's not like I'm in a Tom Cruise movie. You know, where
yeah,
crazy shit is happening.
yeah.
No, daily life so fucking mundane and boring sometimes.
But is it boring to you? Was it boring to you?
Also, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yes and no. It's complicated. It's both.
Because
Like,
what I struggle, what's frustrating for me when I try to when I think about making plays is that mundane moments are never mundane and boring to me, you know, like it's like I enjoy so much and there's the stake is very high. Like
I
I
think maybe you have.
I I I feel the biggest fulfillment in life when I'm doing nothing, looking at, you know, the sky or like the something, you know,
You are
like
really authentically Japanese.
feeling the wind.
You are
And then
appreciate.
I'm like, how is it like how can I share this, you know, like how can I how is it possible to share to have somebody else who appreciate this the same way as I do is
No,
is the biggest challenge. It's never about
I
like somebody killing, dying. It's
yeah,
never
of course.
about having the biggest success. It's about I I guess all that events feed into these mundane moments, but it's almost like I need that mundane, boring moment for to to finally feel.
Mm. I think it's my insecurity
Mm.
that I put then music over these moments because I'm scared that it's the algorithm like indoctrination that people might click next.
I love the use of music in your film.
Yeah, but but
They should be there.
but that's my thing is that I if I left it without music, that would
Yeah.
go closer to what you said about the mundane. You know, I just leave it like mundane.
No, no. I think you adding things is great. I think having those just like beach or like, you know, I don't know. I just like all the beach scenes. Um but these views of like daily life, I I love that somehow you insert your perspective. Like
Mm.
what it seems to you, you know, what you feel looking at these. That's me. You know, I'm somebody who hates reading Dostoevsky, but I enjoy listening to people talking about Dostoevsky. So for my personal uh, taste, looking at these footages are great, but I'm much more interested in what it is to you.
So in a
Like
way, my
I
film,
want to see I want to see you in this film. I think that's what it is.
and I'm constantly withholding a little bit. You know, like it's like, oh, do we get to feel Ayoto in this? No, no, it's a
Yeah,
bit. Oh,
understandably so, because this is like very, very personal to you.
yeah, this is like OnlyFans. I should have this film available on OnlyFans.
You should a little more nudity to it, though.
I had a bit
You should
one.
add like 3 minutes of yourself fucking people for OnlyFans.
I feel like my film, I need to create like this thing where people want to have, you know, like the Criterion box set of um, what's the Russian filmmaker? You know, like they just want to have the DVD on the box. They're not going to watch it, but they need to just have it to, you know, next to Dostoevsky, next to Hegel. You know, you have it like a little Buddha, like this is what you pray to. This is your little
It's
protective god, you know.
mantra you will never understand, but works.
What's that?
It's the mantra that you will never understand, but works.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wish that's the best I can hope for my film.
Mm.
You should, I'm gonna edit your review quote.
This is a mantra.
It's really it's a mantra that, that you can have on your shelf that works. That you don't it's a mantra that you don't understand, but it works.
That could be good.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That's the conclusion for our talk today. Then.
Oh,
All
cool.
right. Thanks for
But
good
thanks,
seeing.
thanks for sharing your film.
Yeah, I will. I will have. I need to finish it in terms of putting it available for everybody to watch it, and
Yeah.
so yeah, people can give their point of view and their experiences of my mantra.
Yeah.
All
In
right.
the theater.
Oh, that's I have to send to more people.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm sure it'll resonate with, there will be people who would strongly feel something.
So
Yeah.
let's finish this talk. Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks for hearing our.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay. Bye bye.